Hello, spiritual gangsters. Welcome to Love Month. And today we've got a really special guest. This is for all the single ladies out there. But if you are in a relationship, listen in anyway, because this woman is a wealth of knowledge and understanding. She is predominantly a dating coach, but so much of the stuff that we're going to cover today will be completely and totally and utterly relevant to you, whether you're in a relationship or not. So today, ladies, we are welcoming Camille Thurnherr. Have I said that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
well done.
We're welcoming Camille to the group. Camille, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So happy to be here. So I'm a love and success coach. I help single-driven women in how to attract a great life partner so they can have that loving, passionate and committed relationship they truly deserve. My main clients are women in their mid to late 30s, early 40s who have really focused on their careers more, but now really want to.
That's me. I just say I put my hand up. That is exactly me.
So yeah, women like you who have been focusing more on their careers and they're really wanting to have that long-term relationship. So they're the main women I've been supporting over the last 8 years or so. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, awesome. And so we're just going to really quickly mention here that today we are going to be talking in general terms about the attraction between men and women. The majority, if not, I'm assuming all of your clients are heterosexual women looking for heterosexual relationships with heterosexual men. But I think, you know, what we're going to uncover in the interview today is the way that we think, not just about the people that we want to attract, but ultimately it's probably going to be a reflection in how we are rocking up in ourselves. So we are just going to generically use the terms man and woman today, but, you know, we're certainly not excluding anybody who is looking for a relationship with a woman or a man. We're just going to use those terms. So we're just going to put that out there now.
Perfect.
So let's start off with what are the sort of problems that you see your clients facing? Because as a single 37-year-old who has spent the last sort of few years really dedicating herself to work, I think one of the limiting beliefs that I have around dating is that either there are no good men out there or I just don't know where to go and find them. So where do you go?
It's a great question. And I quickly had a chance to read some of the questions. I'm like, it's such a good question. So in regards to where are all the good men or where are all the great women, if there was just that one spot, to find them, everyone would go there, right? So unfortunately, there isn't that one spot. But the good news is the great men, for the women out there who are looking for a male partner, the great men really are all around you. They could be in your apartment building. I personally met my now husband at my local cafe at the time. They could be in your work environment. They could be at the tram stop. They can be absolutely online. Online is still a great way to meet potential partners. I know a lot of women don't like online dating, but it is still a really good way to meet potential partners, as long as you know how to navigate it and as long as you have really strong boundaries around it and you're not going to get too thrown off. So back to your question, there are great men out there, they're all around us. However, of course, not everyone is going to be your ideal partner. There needs to be attraction. There needs to be, you want to, of course, have similar goals and values. However, sometimes, the person that you think that you want or that your type or your current ideal partner in your head might not actually be the person who can really make you happy. I think that's a really important point.
I think that's a really important point. So the thing I've taken away from that is, the first thing is that actually they're everywhere, because, I do think, as you know, I started out as a dating coach, and I think there is this sort of misconception that maybe people are looking in the wrong places, but quite often it's the person who's standing next to you. The universe is literally putting this person next to you. It's whether or not you are going to say, this person looks interesting, I'm going to engage in a conversation with him. I'm going to say, hey, how's your day going? Or comment on the weather, or ask him for directions, even if you secretly know where you're going. And I think, you know, a lot of the time there are opportunities in front of people that they don't see because they've blinded themselves. They're expecting their partner to come to them in a certain way. Or, like you just touched on, they're expecting their partner to be a certain person that maybe actually might not be right for them at all. And so we tend to, I mean, I've got a couple of friends who are perfect examples of this. They're with people now in happy long-term relationships, which of their own admission, they probably didn't think that they would end up with someone like that because it wasn't on their list, if that makes sense. So how do we go about knowing whether or not someone is right for us?
Yeah, great question. And I think what we're talking about it right now, I think that is actually one of the biggest blocks that I see, you know, driven successful women. That's the main issue. And, you know, I just had a chat with a potential partner, and her thing is she tends to be attracted to more of the bad boys and the guys who are just not right for her, but she's drawn to them for whatever reason. And if someone would actually approach her that could really potentially give her what she wants, as far as like having a family and treating her with respect and being emotionally available, she's actually scared of that person. She's actually scared of that true intimacy. So yeah, that's I just wanted to add that, because I think some of the women listening, they might say, oh, you know, they're just not, they're not out there, and but they are. It's just that you might actually not be ready to really receive the real thing, you know, the true love, and that a really well balanced guy could actually give you. So now I've forgotten your question though, so I've just gone in another.
That's okay. I'm a queen of tangents. You're in good company. Before we both try and work out what question it was that I asked you, actually, I just want to touch on that point, because I think it's really relevant. You know, I think a lot of the time in life, we say, I want this. And it might not just, it could be in any area of life. You know, I want this partner, I want this money, I want this business success. But actually, when we start giving it real thought, we might not think either that we deserve it, or in some way it might be quite fearful to us. You know, I see a lot of people who are scared of success.
Yes.
And I see a lot of people who, rightly or wrongly, haven't learned how to accept and receive love, so it actually makes them feel uncomfortable. So although they say, I want to find the man of my dreams, they're not in a place of self-love, self-trust and self-worth to be able to accept that. And I think, you know, that is certainly one of the things that I have been working on in my own single life, to really manage and sort of stop looking quite so much externally and looking a bit more internally. So what was my question? I can't remember. Oh, that's right.
How do we then go about finding that, right? That was the question.
Yeah.
So that's a big question. So the first thing I would say, apart from getting some coaching, which is always going to help with getting clear on your blind spots, I think apart from that, it's really what women can do is to be really aware of how do I actually feel when I'm around men that are genuinely interested in me. So just really being aware around what does that bring up for me when someone is actually pursuing me, who could potentially give me what I want. You know, do I then go into my head of like, oh well, but no, he's not tall enough, or he's not wealthy enough, or I don't really like his accent, or no, he's not from, you know, whatever story you're telling yourself. So I guess it really starts with awareness. And another thing another thing I suggest is asking friends who do have what you currently want. Like, you know, you mentioned your girlfriends who are now in relationships with maybe men who they wouldn't have considered in the past. Really ask them about like how did they feel when they first met? What changed in them? What worked for them? What didn't work? Because a lot of women have this idea that when the, it's that sort of story that we're told that when we meet the one, or, really a chosen life partner, that it's just meant to be like amazing and it's all easy. Oh no, if it doesn't flow, it's not meant to be. But that's not necessarily like that, because as driven, strong, independent women, we have some pretty strong defenses. So again, just be aware that once you do meet someone who could actually give you what you want, it might not feel that great, because and I can talk from my experience. When I met Alex, he was very much like, I like you, I'm interested in, I want the same thing as you. And I thought, like, what is wrong with the guy? I actually thought, like, is there something wrong with him? But there was nothing wrong with him. He was just a real person who actually genuinely wanted to be with me and didn't have this sort of, on and off aloofness or playing games, and I thought there was something wrong with me, with him. But no, there was actually something wrong with how I managed all of that. So I think that's a really great thing to be aware of.
Yeah. That's a really great point. I'd never really thought of doing it like that either, of actually going to people who are in the sort of relationship which you think you might want and saying, how did it feel? How did you guys get together? Yeah. What resistance did you come up with? Not because that person is the same as you, but because it might spark a thought in your mind where you go, I do that, or I do think like that. Because so much of what we do is an automatic response, isn't it? And so
absolutely,
most of the time we don't think about what we are internally thinking or saying or doing, and that then manifests in our reality. So yeah, you're completely right, and it's made me think about a couple of things. So thank you. My own coaching session right here that we're recording.
Totally.
Suddenly started sweating. Okay, this is a great question, and I think it's one which I think a lot of people are going to really get some benefit from hearing the answer to. How do you stop yourself from coming off as needy?
Well, I did read that question as well, and I thought, well, the most honest, most direct answer is to have that strong sense of self and not to be needy, in the first place. To not, because we don't want to just we don't want to just have that strategy of like, I need to act a certain way. So the real answer is like, well, have a strong sense of self, do the inner work necessary, and just work on your neediness if there's that issue. But on to add to it, I think it's very much about, and I think there was another question you were going to ask. I don't know if I'm going to answer that in the same thing, but really, it's really about being authentic. And we all have some weaknesses. We all have some fears and doubts. And to express ourselves with authenticity, for example, if you do really like someone and there's a second date and you do feel actually a little bit like nervous, like I think it can be really attractive to say like, oh my God, I just want to let you know, I'm actually feeling a bit nervous. I'm not usually like this, but I must really like you, and that's really confident. And it's the way you express that. I think that authenticity that then can be seen as real confidence.
Yeah, confidence and vulnerability, I think that's what came up for me then. And actually you're right, because, whether or not that second date turns into a third date, fourth date, fifth date, or marriage, actually it's really lovely to hear that as a compliment from somebody else. So no one's going to take that the wrong way unless you're like, I'm really nervous, like a complete mental person. But actually to come across from that space of confident vulnerability, I actually think is a really attractive, really sexy thing. One of the other things that I know to be true, years ago, I read the book, The Rules.
Yes.
If anyone is familiar with that, if you're not, The Rules was written by a couple of women, maybe in the 90s or something, the early 90s. And it was basically a book of rules. You should wait a certain amount of time, depending on your age bracket or something horrendous like that, before you respond to a guy's text. And basically it's playing the aloof game. Be aloof, make him chase you, make him want you. And I remember reading that book and thinking to myself, the problem with that is I can wait 4 hours to respond to a guy and still sound like a psycho, or I could respond in 4 minutes and sound cool as a cucumber and sexy and confident. So, I think, like, put down the role playing. I see a lot of women talk about the strategy behind getting a guy to like them.
Yeah.
And if you are rocking up with your boundaries in place, your values in place, with confidence and self-love, and knowing what it is that you will accept and what you won't accept, then those games aren't necessary.
Absolutely. I totally agree. That, look, I think that those there can be good guidelines for women who tend to give too much too soon, and that guidelines can be good, but really what you're saying is spot on. It's all about your energy, and and that's why, again, like you knowing your worth, you knowing your boundaries, you knowing that you are testing him, or testing him as in, could he be a potentially long-term partner for me just as much? So I guess it's really important to keep that in mind. Like, I'm checking in. How do I feel with this? How does it feel to have a date with this man? Sure, I might be super attracted to him. He might tick all of the boxes, but doesn't mean he's going to be the father of my children. He's going to be, he's going to be the right match for me. So I guess always just checking in, taking that power back of, well, how does he make me feel? How do I feel in his company? And not jumping into that whole fairy tale with like, oh, well, no, he's the one. And I've done that, I did that so much myself. I totally get what that can be like.
You've just reminded me of a story, actually. I was speaking to a friend of mine. This was probably about 4 or 5 months ago, and she called me up. She'd been on a few dates with this guy, and she called me up because he hadn't responded, and he's kind of like, she'd been ghosted, I suppose would be the term to use, when suddenly he just disappears off and never to be heard from again. And all she was talking about was, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And I just said to her, well, what did he do right that has put you in this pickle? Yes. Actually, when you stop thinking, how can I sell myself to this other human being? And when you sit in a place of, I need to know that you are worthy of my time, therefore, how are you going to rock up, mate? Totally. How are you, and not what are you saying, but what are you doing? Because we need to be looking for actions over words are cheap. Absolutely. When it comes to dating. And it completely stopped her in her track. And she was like, oh my God, he's not the right person for me, because the right person for me is respectful and kind and generous and makes me laugh, and he didn't do any of those things.
Any of that. Great. Well, what a big breakthrough you would have created for her in that conversation. Incredible.
And I think a lot of the time when it comes to dating, we are, as women, or the women that I come across, and certainly this is my own experience, I have to, say to myself when I go out on a date, I'm like, actually, you're not going out on a date to prove anything to this guy. You're going out on a date to interview this guy to see whether he or not he is worthy to fit into your life and worthy of more of your time. And I think that's just a simple flip of sort of the mindset, which can move people away from that sort of space of feeling needy and therefore coming across as needy, because it's really not sexy.
And of course, what you're sharing it's spot on, and it has to be authentic. So I guess if for the women who are listening who might not feel really in their power, worthy, beautiful, then maybe it's time to not focus on dating for a little while and just really focus on getting that connection with yourself right again, and then go back into the dating world. That's
such a powerful thing. And I think a lot of, as human beings, we tend to look externally for the validation of ourselves, don't we? And so I think there are probably a lot of women either watching this now or certainly out there dating who are looking for another person to come along to make them feel better, or to help them heal, or to complete them, or whatever it is. And I think you have just highlighted something which is so important, which is, if you are going out there from a place of need, you probably need to stop going out there, and you need to start working a little bit more on yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Thank you so much for making that. How can you tell if you're wasting your time?
Yeah, good question. Well, I guess it depends on what you're wanting. So for my ideal client, she definitely wants that long-term relationship. And most of my clients do want marriage and children as well. So you're wasting your time when he's not introducing you to any of his friends or family. Like I would say, like if you've been dating someone for more than 2 or 3 months and you haven't met any of his friends or been introduced to family, there's a bit of a red flag going on. I think that's a big one. And also if he hasn't brought up the exclusivity conversation. So if he hasn't made sure that to make sure, like, just want to make sure we're not dating other people, like I really want to be with you, is that okay? Have we stopped being online? That if that conversation hasn't happened in the, by after like 2 or 3 months, then then I think that you need to have that conversation. And if he doesn't want to have that conversation, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Then there's the other thing of like, I have had clients who have dated men who actually, they had no idea, but they were in another relationship or they were actually still married. So I guess, again, if you haven't been to his place, simple things like that, then there's something not right. So, he might be a really good liar, and he might be like, oh, well, I've just moved to Melbourne and I'm living in a service apartment, but yeah, so you need to see his place, you need to meet his friends, you need to be introduced to his family at one stage and talk about the future. I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's been raised for me is, and this is certainly something that I know that I used to do, and I now have such conscious awareness of it, is that it's really easy to fill in the gaps that people leave with our own wants, desires, or seeing the potential in somebody when they actually haven't proved it. Yes. And I think, this was certainly what I used to do. So when someone left a gap, like they weren't introducing me to their friends, I would justify that for them.
Because of course. Yes.
I didn't want to have to admit that actually this guy's just not that into you. He's just not that into you. And I so wanted him to be into me that I would make it easy for him not to introduce me to his friends, because I knew that deep down he didn't really like me that much. And so because I could see the potential in somebody, it's so dangerous to fall in love with the potential of another human being. You have to be quite strict with yourself, I suppose, don't you? And say,
yes,
what is this man displaying? Not what is he promising, not what is he saying, what is he showing, and what is he doing? And I get that, again, if you're coming from a place of sort of lower self-esteem, it's really tough. I think what I just want to add one more thing onto that, which is, listen to your friends and family. Now, I certainly have seen cases where people have led very happy lives together, where maybe her friends aren't overly keen on him. And that, has worked out well anyway, or, they've got to know him over time, all that kind of stuff. But I do think if you're introducing somebody new in your life to your friends and family, and they are all saying the same thing, you kind of need to listen. And I, with my last partner, made that mistake. My friends were not keen, and I knew it, and I ignored it. I didn't want to hear it. I got defensive, and so I shut them down. And then, funnily enough, I got my heart broken. So, calibrate yourself, not on everyone else's opinion, but, the people that really matter to you, that know you really well, that genuinely have your best interests at heart, listen to them.
I totally agree. I mean, especially female friends, again, I mean, it's a bit of a generalization, but women are extremely intuitive with picking up if something's not right. So yeah, inviting him to a social event where 2 or 3 of your female friends are going to be at, I totally agree. They will usually, they can pick up if something's not quite right. And I guess that it is tough. We need to then face, we can't just sort of ignore it. I think, and what you said, it happens all the time. Like women, I coach, it happens a lot because it's the whole, I can fix him. No, he's got all his potential. I can see it, that nurturing quality of women can really come out. But this is your life, this is your precious goal, so really it's you need to make sure you're going to get your needs met.
Yeah, absolutely. So picking up from this particular conversation, because you did say if he's not having that exclusivity chat with you, that is one of the warning signs. But how do you initiate the where are we going conversation? So say you've been dating someone for a couple of months, he's met some of your friends, maybe you've even met some of his friends, but you're not quite sure on, are we calling each other boyfriend, girlfriend yet? How do you go about opening that conversation without sounding like a mental bitch?
Great question. So the approach that I would recommend is very much, and I actually think it's a conversation to have sooner rather than later, especially it depends again on your age group and what you are wanting. But for my general clients who really don't want to waste their time, I think it's absolutely fine to have that conversation within, after 4 or 5 dates. Like you don't need to wait too long. And the way I recommend doing it is very much talking from a sense of empowerment, where a woman will express, let's say his name's Andrew, like Andrew, like I want to have a bit of a conversation around, what I want to share what I'm really wanting for my life and my vision for my ideal relationship. And if you're not, if you're not that person, then that's totally fine. But I just want to have that conversation so we both know that we're on the same page. And if not, then that's okay too, so it's and then just talking about like, so what is your vision for the future about relationship, how, not just about us two, but what's your vision for your ideal relationship? Like, what are you really wanting to experience? And then I guess then towards the end of that conversation would be like, so do you feel that, we could do this journey together or not?
That's really beautiful, because, I know people who've like in a relationship with a guy and it becomes kind of obvious after a while that they're exclusive, and then a year goes by, 18 months, and then she turns around and starts talking about children. He's like, oh my God, no, I don't want children.
And they never had that conversation.
Or, I want to move back to England, or, I don't believe in marriage, or, some fundamental thing comes up and you think, you guys have been together for 18, like, what have you been talking about? And I completely agree with you. I'm a huge believer, as most of my clients and market will know, I'm a huge believer in time travel. I'm always visualizing my future. I'm always talking about what it is that I want, not what I don't want. And so I think, being comfortable and certain about what you want, desire, and deserve, to be able to say to somebody else, this is where I'm going, where are you going? And if you're going to the same place, do you want to go together? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
And that's really attractive. That's not pushy. It's not needy. It's really empowered. But it needs to be authentic. Again, like, I guess you need to feel that inner power of like, I am willing to walk away if Andrew, or whatever his name is not there. I'm willing to then say, look, I think we should really go separate ways. If that's that, you need to have that courage to then also walk away if it's not right.
Yeah, completely agree with you. Okay, I know your time is so precious. I'm just going to ask you one more question, if that's okay. What are your top 5 tips for enjoying dating? Because I've got single friends, I'm a single lady myself, and I know people who sort of go out religiously dating, desperately looking, and they don't enjoy the experience of it, or the idea of going out on a date makes them want to vomit in their own mouth, or they're just sitting at home and swiping on Tinder. So what are your sort of, top 5 tips, I suppose, for really enjoying the experience of it?
Yeah, great question. I'm not sure about 5 actually. That's a lot, but I think
it's a lot, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's just because I did that and I've got 5 fingers. So do as many as you want.
There's probably 2 big main ones. So the first one I would say is look at it as it's an experiment, as in if you can see, if you can go into dating as a practice of, from that you'll get some main insight or main learning from every single date, and not sort of look at it as, oh my God, he needs to be that one person. So turning up with that intention of I'm going to learn something from this person, or I'm going to have an insight about myself or how I turn up, or I'm going to get really clear that I don't want that crazy, artistic type of guy, or whatever it is, that just go into it as this is an experiment, and I'm going to learn something from every single date. And even after every date, have like a little list of what did I like about this man, what did I enjoy about this date, what didn't I enjoy, sort of really looking at it as a bit of a personal development process, I think is one good intention.
I so love that, because I think, we have quite a binary code, don't we, as human beings? So that something is either right or wrong, it's good or it's bad, it's a success or it's a failure. But when you go looking through the lens of curiosity and use it as an experiment, you can't fail. You can't have a bad date. You can only come away with learning something.
Absolutely.
And so I love that framework. It's really freeing. Thank you. What's the second point?
And the second one is, it's a little bit similar, but the second one, and it has worked really well with a few of my clients, where the intention was that if you turn up on that date with full presence, sharing your unique feminine flavor, as in your sexual confidence, a bit of your vulnerability, your personal power. If you turn up with that total presence, that thinking of that the fifth date, that fifth person is going to be a real potential partner. So again, turning up with that, creating a bit of a game out of it. Like, if I turn up exactly the way I need to turn up, even though this guy's totally not my ideal partner, and making it an interesting date, like bringing everything to the table to make it into a great date regardless, it actually becomes a lot more enjoyable as well. Because I think often when we turn up to dates, or in the past when I've turned up to dates, it's like, yeah, no, he doesn't tick the boxes.
You stop trying.
And we just disconnect from that person. But think of it as, this is a human being. Again, what can I learn from this interaction? What can we, who knows? Like, you might end up being with his cousin, or his, like there could be another thing that could come out of that date, a business connection, whatever it is. So it's again turning up with that full curiosity, full presence, and just exploring different, a different experience every time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And worst case scenario, you've had a nice glass of wine and you've learned something a bit more about yourself. Or, maybe you've added to the list of things that you're not willing to tolerate and
totally
learn. Yeah. I love that, Camille. You are such a glorious soul. You do such amazing work. How can the members of Spiritual Gangsters find you? How can they follow you? What have you got coming up? Let us know.
I will actually send you a link for where the women who would like to find out a little bit more about what I do and get into the content a little bit more. There's a webinar they can sign up to, that is like a recorded webinar that they can watch at their own time. And then of course also there is an invitation for a complimentary chat, so I'll also send you that link for the women who are really at a place where they feel like, okay, this is really my time, and I need some help to achieve that goal, and I'm on a mission to do whatever it takes. Then I would love to have a chat with you, and we will get you really clear what's currently in the way, and then what potentially needs to happen for you to have that breakthrough.
Amazing. You're a legend. I will put those links in the title of this video. Camille, thank you so very much. I really appreciate your time. Ladies, thank you very much. Remember, whether you're dating, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're happily married, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself.